Hello, everybody. Hi, folks. I can see people popping in here. Hello and welcome. Welcome to our webinar today. We are so glad that you could make it. We have Caitlin here today with us to talk all about turning your website into an experience. This is going to be a really good one. So as you're getting settled in, as everyone's popping in, why don't you let us know in the chat who you are, where you are, and maybe what is the biggest struggle in your business right now. We'd love to hear from you if you're new to Offering Tree webinars. My name is Sinead. My pronouns are she, her, and I'm part of the Offering Tree team here, but I'm also a yoga teacher in Calgary, Alberta. So I'm excited for this webinar because Caitlin and I spent a couple of hours this summer. I dove into a rabbit hole with the new page template that Offering Tree released back at the end of the spring. Spent a couple of hours, well, actually about 8 hours, revising my website and just like changing the branding, changing the colors. It was loads of fun. I love the look of it. I don't know what anyone else would think, but I really want to learn how to make it much more specific so that I'll actually really be able to drill down on getting people to enjoy it as well, as much as I did. So yeah, if you're new to Offering Tree webinars, we do these webinars once or twice a month. We always want to hear what you want to hear. We try and give you some experience and some business guidance and ways to make your business run better. If you're completely new to the Offering Tree system, we are a software that's an all-in-one business software for wellness entrepreneurs and studios. So it's everything: your website, your on-demand library, email marketing, blog, everything is all in one place right there for you. So I'm just going to hop over to the chat. Who do we see over here who's popping in? We've got Terry in Leesburg, Florida. Hey, Terry. Diana in Ottawa. Hello. Esther in New Zealand. Oh, nice. Frederica in New York. Jen Sutherland from Madison. Lisa, hi, everybody. You have a lot of visitors to your website, Terry, but not a lot of signups. Yeah, that hopefully we're going to start making a difference with that. That's good. You're in the right place to learn about that. So as we get settled in here, I'll go through my housekeeping. We are going to have quite a Q&A at the end. Keep your questions coming in the chat. We'll keep an eye on it. There will always be a replay. The replay will come out to you in the next few hours after we finish up here. So stay tuned if you do need to hop off early, but we are going to be sharing some discounts and some links throughout the webinar as well. So stay tuned if you can. And yeah, who are Offering Tree? Well, I've already told you that. So now I'm going to hand it over to Caitlin. I'm just going to stop my share here, Caitlin. And there you go. I'll hand over to you.
Thank you so much. Pleasure to be here. All right, I'm going to share my screen, get my slides going up here. Sinead, can you confirm that that worked on your end? Beautiful. Thank you. All right, so I'm going to chat with you guys for about 30 minutes on this topic, and then we're going to open it up for Q&A at the end. So if you have a question, the oh so wonderful Sinead is going to be monitoring the chat for me. Thank you so much. Really helps me focus. And then I will address as many questions as I can at the end. But thank you so much for joining us today. I'm thrilled to be here and thrilled to chat with you guys. Working with solopreneurs, and especially in the wellness industry, you guys are really near and dear to me. So let's do it. All right, so a little bit about me. I'm Caitlin. I'm a web designer specifically for service-based solopreneurs. That is to say that businesses like yours are my specialty. And I design websites and the systems they integrate with, like your email marketing, your scheduling, your booking, all those systems that run your business and make it gorgeous, of course. But I also do this with two goals in mind. The first goal is designing things in a way that it takes work off your plate. And by that, it means that I'm designing things so that way it can do things like filter for your best fit clients, communicate your boundaries, your business boundaries, so people know what they can have from you and can't have from you, and helping clients self-service as much as possible so that they don't need you at every interaction. They can sign themselves up. They know how to pay themselves. The second goal is to create all of these things so it's a genuinely supportive experience for your clients. And that means doing things like anticipating their needs, making it easy for them to accomplish their goals, and offering them support in overcoming any obstacles that they might hit in their journey. So a little bit about my background in a nutshell is that I've been a service provider forever. So I started in the family tailoring business when I was 8 years old. And I worked in the gig economy as a freelance creative person who wore many hats all through my teens, 20s, and still now in my 30s. So of all the hats that I wore in that time, let's see if we can recall a few of them. There's no way I'll get them all, but I painted murals. I made custom prom gowns. I owned a kids' face painting company. I did operations for another body art company. I modeled internationally. And then somewhere in all of that, I went to business school. And I also taught business and makeup artists at one point. So what I noticed through all of those businesses that I got to either run or touch or have some kind of part in is that all of these businesses, whether they were itty bitty or a little bit bigger, all had the same underlying flow to them. And I'm going to tell you that flow. I'll give you kind of a high level of that flow. There was something that they did to be visible out in the world that made them discoverable to new people. Things like posting on social media to pull traffic into their website. Then they had a website which served as something of a brochure, helping visitors decide if they're in the right place here. If that person was ready to buy, the website captured their information and gave them a way to do that. If that person was not ready to buy, the website still captured their information so you could stay in touch, usually with something like email marketing. Once a client booked, there was some kind of onboarding process, some kind of process that welcomed them into the service. Of course, then we offered excellent service all the way through, no matter what industry. And then at the end, there was some kind of offboarding, something that we did when we sent clients back out into the world that helped us generate repeat business, something like getting amazing testimonials. And then those testimonials helped to generate new work. So at the end, it created this beautiful circuit, this well-oiled machine that got us great reviews where everything kind of worked together and, of course, made us money. All right. So today we're going to zero in on the website piece of that circuit, which is a very important one. But before we dive in, I want you to take a quick look at this pyramid. Anything you create for your business, website or otherwise, first needs to be functional. That is the bottom of the pyramid. And then as we improve it over time, it becomes more beautiful and then ultimately truly delightful. And that's the experience part. The experience part is way up at the top of the pyramid. But I have three, let me think. Yeah, I'm going to start with the 3 invitations to help keep you grounded, no matter where you are in your journey. So you might just be at the functional level. That's fine. So the 3 invitations I have for you are, number 1, no shoulding yourself. If you are focused on your website, just making it functional right now, you can't think about making it beautiful or delightful. You're just trying to get it functional. That is amazing. Thank you for joining us today. It's the foundation for a reason, and I'm so glad to support you in that space. But the second is to give your journey room to breathe. So I am sharing a little vulnerable moment here, my website in 2019 versus what it looks like now. It is always evolving and has actually evolved even since this screenshot that I'm sharing. So there's been many seasons of my business where I just needed a super simple landing page to test out an offer, or times where I left up a page that really wasn't as good as it could have been, was frankly kind of lame, just because I didn't have the bandwidth to do anything else. So you will all get something that is actionable that you can put into effect right away from this webinar that immediately improves your website, but you're also going to get a lot of information that you can't take action on all of it today. So your job is just to stick it in your pocket and let it gel when the time is right. And the third invitation is to hold on to your center. This is a big one. So your website is the intersection of a bunch of different specialties: copywriters, designers, developers, brand designers, accessibility specialists. There are a lot of people out there who have opinions about what should be on your website, including me. And your job is to stay grounded and true to your own path. Because if you try to take what everyone says as gospel, you're going to be really overwhelmed. So my invitation to you is to try things on and see how they feel for you, but ultimately kick what doesn't work to the curb and keep on rolling. This is your journey here. All right. On to the juicy stuff. So you're going to hear me talk about experiences today. But what does that even mean? What is customer experiences? This is I don't know. What does it mean? So you might see customer experience out in the world abbreviated as CX. And customer experiences are the total experience that a customer has with your brand. It's not just your website. It's what they hear, they feel, they see, they smell, they taste, they touch, all of the emotions that they have starting before they ever purchase from you and continuing well after the sale is complete. It's a sum total experience. Most US consumers consider a positive experience to be more influential than great advertising, which blows my mind every time that I read it. And most people would actually pay more for it. The statistic is up to about 16% more. But consumers also say that the customer experience at most companies needs improvement. That is to say that there is a gap between what customers are telling us they want and what we're giving them, which is called an opportunity. So what makes a fabulous customer experience? The top 4 elements that US consumers anyway point to are speed, convenience, knowledgeable help, and friendly service. And giving them those things means that you have to empathize with them as like other humans out in the world. Stay curious about their experience and their feedback and the words that they use to describe their problems and their goals and their vision and what their experience. And that takes valuing them beyond the sale, because if you see them as a number, if you see them as a target audience, which is a term you might hear a lot in marketing, it's not necessarily a bad term, but when you think of them as a target audience instead of just like human beings I would love to do business with, it's a lot harder to connect with your customers in this kind of way, in an experiential kind of way. One sort of caveat to this is that I want to acknowledge anyone who's joined us today who's experiencing financial struggles or any other kind of personal emergencies, because adopting this kind of generous, customer-centric mindset, at least in my experience, is a lot harder to do when you're pouring from an empty cup. So major respect to everyone out there who's doing their best, and we're just do what you can. That's all. So if that makes a wonderful customer experience, what makes a bad customer experience? Which unsurprisingly is the inverse. So bad employee attitudes, unfriendly service, an we don't know if we trust them yet. They're not necessarily untrustworthy, but like we don't trust them quite yet, or unknowledgeable employees. Which I want to point out, none of the things on those lists mention technology. It actually was mentioned in the particular report that I pulled the statistics from, but it was mentioned so far down the list, meaning that your technology being like super flashy with all the bells and whistles actually is not your highest priority. It's not what serves your customers. Rather, when it comes to the tech that runs your website or any other part of your digital ecosystem, its value is being able to support your customers' experience, just being able to support their goals, not necessarily that it looks the best or it is like the most sparkly out there. Does it support what they came here to do is really what wows them. All right, so that's a little kind of briefing on what customer experience is. Now, how do we apply that to your website? At its core, your website needs to accomplish a few things. Clearly state what you offer, make it easy for people to find what they need, and the third is inviting them to take that next step with you. So we're going to walk through how we can create a homepage that meets those 3 criteria and integrates all of this fabulous customer experience stuff we've been talking about. On the right-hand side of this slide is a homepage map. And this is the framework I'm going to take you through today. We're going to go top to bottom. We're going to start at the tagline and we're going to kind of follow the arrows like a water slide here. And at the end of this presentation, you're going to get a link where you can download a copy of this. So no need to like take a screenshot or try to write it out right now. I'm going to make sure you get a copy of this map at the end. So let's dive in. First is above the fold. Above the fold, if you've heard that term before, or if you're not familiar with it, means everything that someone sees when they first land on your website before they start scrolling. If they don't scroll down at all, the website just loads on the screen. What is visible there? That's everything that's quote unquote above the fold. And it is absolutely amazing. How many people will never scroll past that point? They will not scroll down. So it's really important. Some people do scroll down, but it's statistically very important that we only put the best things up there, and that we put all the things up there that matter to our customers, because it's quite possible they will never see anything else. So above the fold, here are the things that I would love to see on your website. I want to see your big, beautiful promise, which answers the question, what can you do for me? When someone lands at your website, your big, beautiful promise, like, paints a picture of what they get to have if they work with you. And it's the first kind of filter for them to say, am I in the right spot? So I want to see a big, beautiful promise. And I love seeing it paired with a concrete tagline of how you do what you promised. So for example, on my website, the big, beautiful promise is make your clients swoon, which is like beautiful. But what do you mean? Like, how are you going to do that? And so I pair it with a tagline that tells you that I do that by setting up all the techie bits of your systems and making them beautiful. And now you're like, oh, I get it. This is kind of a tall order for the first try. So if you have not figured out the 2 perfect sentences that make you sound like a total superstar, it's fine. Mine has been through many, many iterations over many, many years. So give yourself a little grace there when you're experimenting with these 2 sentences. It asks you to be very succinct, which is it's just tough to do. So that's what you're aiming for, is this big, beautiful promise and a concrete tagline of how you do it, and just workshop it. The more, you'll put up version 1, a couple months you'll put up version 2. I'd also love to see this paired with a high resolution photo. So we definitely don't want the first photo that people see of your site to be blurry. In a perfect world, this high resolution photo would show the experience or paint the picture of what it's like to work with you. I also want to see navigation links, of course, like a main menu, right? And in the main menu, less is more. I really only want to see like 5 max options up there. And if you have any sub menus, which I mean, like if you hover on a link and then there's like a menu, an extra menu kind of pops up, limit your sub menus to about 3 items. More than that gives people decision fatigue. It's like too much for them to like figure out. Like, if you can imagine driving down a highway and then like 37 street signs all pop up at the same time. You're like, you don't know where to go. And then it pauses your experience and makes you think like, well, I guess that's the point. You actually have to stop and think. You have to stop and look around and be like, where am I? And like, where should I go? And that's not the experience we want people to have. We want people to arrive and just be like, oh, services. It's right, boom. They didn't even have to think about it. What they needed was right there. So less is more in your navigation, about 5 items in your main navigation, and limit your submenus to about 3 items. I also want to see at least one call to action, potentially 2 calls to action. Usually one is a hard ask and one is a soft ask. So the hard ask is like, take a class, work with me, book a thing. It's asking for a commitment. It's asking for skin in the game. And the soft invitation is for people who are on the fence. They're not really ready to commit, but they're interested. They'll do something, but they're not ready to pay you yet. They haven't gotten what they need to know that this is for sure. And that's usually like an invitation to your freebie or lead magnet opt-in offer. Those are all words for the same thing. You guys are in the yoga wellness industry. I would think that something like take a class would really serve your people, and then an introductory offer would probably make sense for your industry, just for the new faces who are browsing. They'd like to kind of test what's going on in your world, but they're not ready to like jump in the deep end. So how can we give them like a kiddie pool? All right, so that's everything above the fold. We are going to scoot on over to the opt-in offer. So this is an example of what I meant when I said you should have a freebie or a lead magnet or an opt-in offer. Some people put it in a banner. Some people put it in like a ribbon right up at the top of their website. Some people do a pop-up. Choose your own adventure there. But we do want this either above the fold or just below the fold, like as high up as possible. And what this does is it offers something of value in exchange for their contact information. And that serves a few purposes for them and for you. For you, it serves the purpose to nudge fence sitters off the fence and into action. It also turns these otherwise completely anonymous website viewers into people that you can actually interact and communicate with. And it also gives you an opportunity to demonstrate your value. Like, come try it out. Like, come see how wonderful we are. It kind of gives them a deeper peek under the hood than your website does, so they can kind of like taste test it. Scrolling further on down the page, remember this all maps to that map. So we just started at the hero section on the top, and we're going to cruise on down the page here. So scrolling down a little further, I want to see something that's like a mini bio, or functions as something of like a value statement. And the purpose here is that this is where your website visitors are going to go to kind of check your vibe. So maybe you specialize in creating safe spaces for women. Maybe you specialize in being super welcoming to all ages. Maybe you specialize in being like a high octane space for like intensity workouts, right? Those are three like very different energies, and may or may not be quite what someone is looking for. And they would probably attract very different kinds of people. So that's the purpose of this sort of like mini bio or mini introduction here. So that way somebody can kind of check the vibe on like, what are you guys about here? This sets the tone. It tells a little bit more about you. It could be paired with, you can see in one of the examples here, it could be paired with a button that links to an about page, but it doesn't have to be. Another thing I'd love to see is pair it with a bold header. You can see both of these have a nice chunky bold header, the how can we help or the about Chester. And this bold header accurately describes what's underneath it and makes scan reading really easily. So when people visit your website, which is a real bummer to find this out if you just spent a lot of time writing good copy for your website, and copy is really important, but people don't usually read it, they scan. And so we want to make sure that the experience of what you're offering on your website is something they can scan easily, because their eyeballs are going to dart across the page to all the biggest and boldest things. So we need the biggest and boldest things to like make sense, so they can find what they need and orient themselves in this new world they just landed in. They tumbled through the internet door, they landed on your website, and they're like, where am I? And so all of these things that you're emphasizing, give them, they're like those street signs. It helps them kind of figure out where they are and what they want to do next. Then give me your services. Give them your services. Depending on what you offer, this could be arranged in a bunch of different ways. A couple options are, you could do a navigable carousel. So a carousel is like when you have like a bunch of options side to side and like left right buttons that let you kind of flip through a carousel. You could do like 3 featured classes or 3 upcoming classes. Or you could do, if you have like a lot of offerings, you don't want to put them all on the homepage. It's going to be overwhelming, but you can do 3 categories. And that would look like, you know, in like studio sessions, virtual sessions, and like private sessions. And then they can kind of pick which door they want to go through to see all of the offerings under that heading. That's a nice way to organize, to take a big mass of stuff you want to show them and just kind of reel it back in so it's easy for them to understand and choose where they want to go. Whatever you choose to do in this space, I really, really like the number 3. It's not a hard rule. Your business is not going to explode if you have 4 options here. But 3 is really easy for people to understand, because it's easy as 1, 2, you probably said 3 in your head. So I like 3 for that reason. It just works really well for people. On these 3, I'm going to call them cards. Each one of these like square or rectangular boxes here, we're going to call them a card. On each card, there's a few things to include. I need like a snack size overview of what's behind that door before I open it. So that could look like the title, 1 to 2 lines of text, just a little snippet, 1 to 2 lines of text about the class or the category. You could do this in bullet points if you want. And information like the date, time, and cost is super helpful. Remember, people are just kind of scanning through information here. So bullet points can be actually an excellent way to kind of give that information. Not everyone likes putting their pricing front and center on their website. You'll kind of hear people who are very much on one camp or the other. Personally, I love putting pricing front and center. my own opinion here, but I think it builds trust and communicates transparency and keeps anyone from wasting their time. And those are energetically, those are the vibes that I want people to have around my business. And so that's why I make that choice. Lastly, we need a call to action button here. So you can see on one of these, both of these have call to action buttons. One has a yellow button and the other one has buttons directly on the card here. So we definitely need a call to action button so people they know where to go next. Like, oh, okay, there's just 3 options. Cool. Now what do I do? We'll give them a call to action button to compel them to action there. These examples that I shared with you have photos on them, and I love that. But if there's, for whatever reason, not photos shared with these, remember that we need photos somewhere else on the page to help the consumer kind of paint the picture of what it's like to work with you. So these do not have to have photos, but just make sure that there's some good imagery on your homepage so people can kind of, again, like we're just trying to catch the vibe at this point. At this point in their journey, they know they have a goal. They're looking for a yoga studio. They just don't know if it's going to be your yoga studio yet. So they're trying to kind of check you out. And that's how we're allowing them to get more information. And as soon as they have enough certainty that like, yeah, I'm pretty sure this is actually going to do what I need, they'll jump in. So our job with the website and making it a great experience is to give them enough certainty, enough safety that if they spend their money on you, it's not going to bite them in the butt. This has a good probability of working out in my favor. I'm in. Another note about pictures. I really like embedded Instagram grids for this. If that's something, if you have an Instagram, that's beautiful. Doing an embedded Instagram can be a fun way to kind of bring imagery into a website. If you haven't done something like a professional branded photo shoot yet, a lot of people don't have that kind of content, but doing an Instagram embed can give it some pizzazz without you actually having to invest in a photo shoot. Another thought on pictures is that people love to see faces and smiles. There's just a little part of our like reptilian brain that's still hanging out here that just loves faces and smiles. Like it makes us feel safe. It makes us feel inviting. So if you have the ability to add photos of pictures of people and pictures of people having like a great time, just psychologically, people are going to be in a good mood when they look at it. They're going to want to stay on this website. So that's a little design psychology thing that's really helpful. Keep on scrolling down the page. At this point in their experience, what they'd really like is social proof. So it could be a little further up on the page. Again, no hard and fast rules here. But social proof, if you've ever seen like a logo ribbon, I've got an example of that here. That builds credibility, or a testimonial carousel, which is the example I've got right below it. For you guys as a consumer, as someone who does a lot of yoga, what I would want to see is probably Google reviews for you guys. And if not Google, another platform where people can leave reviews that I know have not been edited. That's really what the ticket is there. Because if I see a 5-star rating on Google, I know you're awesome. Whereas if I see cherry-picked reviews on your website, which are still very useful, I have reviews like that on my website. I know somewhere in my brain, I'm like, they might have edited these, probably not, but like there's just the authenticity and transparency of something like a Google review goes a long way to help to convincing people like, hey, all of these people made the jump and they loved it. So chances are if you make the jump, you will also have a great time. That's what social proof does. Yeah, I'm going to vote something like that is probably the best for your industry. All right, now on this point of the page, our job is really to drive home like that certainty, to create that certainty with them. Because if they've gotten this far down the page, they're interested, but they have not yet pulled the trigger. So something is holding them back. We don't really know what that is. And your job is now to help them decide that they either are or are not in the right place. And there's a bunch of ways that we can do that. You do not have to do all of these. This is really like choose what sticks out to you, or what's available to you. You could offer a guarantee, something like you'll love it or your first class is on us. You could list your certifications. Look how credible and trained we are. You could list frequently asked questions, and you could do like a 1, 2, 3 process. That's one I like to use a lot. Again, with those threes, I love the threes. The 1, 2, 3 process shows like, wow, look how easy it is to work with me. It's just 1, 2, 3. Again, don't do all of those things. Just choose 1, maybe 2 if you feel really strongly about them. And the other tactics, save them in your pocket, use them on other pages. Alrighty, we are nearing the bottom of your homepage now. And I want another call to action here. One content block that is dedicated just to your call to action. And I love ending every page on your website in a call to action, not just your homepage, because I never want a website visitor to dead end. I don't want them to scroll to the bottom of the page and just be like, huh. And like they have to pause and like think about what to do. We don't want that. We don't really want them to have to like not know for a moment. So when we end a page with a call to action, it just loops them back to the next part of their journey. It continues their journey along. We've kind of just offered them like, we're a wonderful guide here. That's what we're doing. We're guiding them along their experience. They've arrived at the end of the page and we're like, oh, here's where you go next. Here's your call to action. So a call to action at this stage of the page could be a couple ideas to kind of get your juices going. The latest article on your blog. Actually, what would probably be good for you guys is a contact us button. Something like if they're still interested and they still made it to the bottom of your homepage. Something like questions, hit this button to connect with a helpful member of our team. Or even better, something like, contact us to schedule a studio tour. That would give you the ability, that's an experience tactic right there. That would give you the ability to meet this person in person, get FaceTime with them, get to know them. They get one-on-one attention from you. You get to learn their name. You get to offer them something like here's a cup of tea as I take you around the studio. What like a luxurious personalized experience that would be. And an opportunity for you to connect with them on that level. So whatever you choose for your call to action, it could be either of those. It could be neither of those. I'm sure you've got ideas for calls to action yourselves. End the page in a call to action so that way it loops them into the next part of their experience. Now for the footer. In the footer, put your location, even if it's a general location. Like mine says that I'm in New Jersey in the United States. Nobody needs to know exactly where I live, but it is really helpful for people to sort of orient, like, where in the world are you? It's really interesting how many times I've Googled like yoga studios and found really cool studios and actually had no idea where they are. Like, is this a studio I can go to? Is this within driving distance of me? I literally do not know. So somewhere on your website, and I like the footer for this, or at least using the footer to reiterate it, put your location, even if it's broad, put your contact information and put your social media links. Some people disagree about the social media links here. So my philosophy on this is they should go in the footer, not the header. And that is because your social media should pull traffic to your website, not the other way around. People don't arrive at your website to go away from your website and do something else, right? If they landed at your website and then we give them a way to leave it into the infinite scroll that is Instagram, they're going to get distracted. They're gone. So I like to put these things in the footer so that way they've gone through the entire website to get there. We've kind of kept them on the tracks and guided them there. All right. If you do decide that you want to put social in the header, some people do, again, your business is not going to blow up. It is okay. Also stick policy links down here. So if you are collecting email addresses in any way, I really recommend that you have at least a privacy policy. And if you need help sourcing a template for something like that, I have some really wonderful connections. So if you need something like that, feel free to reach out and I can point you in the right direction. A terms and conditions is also helpful, potentially like a service agreement or a refund policy, things like that. We're going to put all your policy links in the footer. All right. That's your homepage. So once you've updated your homepage, I imagine most of you are here because this is something that is on your mind and that you would potentially like to dedicate some time to upcoming. So once you've made the edits to your page, I highly, highly, highly suggest that you get somebody else's eyes on it. Evaluate how it's working and refine as needed. These sound like really like technical steps. Like we're going to edit and refine. Honestly, in my world, I'll just edit it when I have time and I'll refine it when I have time. We're all humans, like doing our best out here. So a couple ways that you can know how this is working for you. I really like hotjar.com. They do visual heat maps that show you how people are interacting with your site, and they give you like recordings so you can literally see what people are doing on your site. I found that they have a free tier also. I have found that very useful over the years. Google Analytics can be great. I rarely recommend it because it's frankly kind of overwhelming for a lot of people. But if your platform has built-in analytics, that is usually a simpler view and gives you really what you need to kind of know if you got a performance boost from what you're doing, or if something you did made the performance get weird. My favorite test, though, my absolute favorite test of how something is working is to give it to my husband to break. I think he likes this test too. So he always finds the issues and errors that I miss. And it's his job to click all the buttons, and he tests all the forms. He writes funny names in all the forms when I get them in my contact form. And inevitably he finds something that I missed. So it is a humbling experience, to say the least, to see it through fresh eyes, but I highly recommend welcoming that perspective in. If you've got one or two people you could share it with, not just to say, look what I made, not people who are just gonna kind of fluff you up and say, oh, it's beautiful, but people who are actually gonna get in there and like press all your buttons and read through the text and say, oh, you've got a typo or this link is broken. Those are good friends. Buy them coffee. And on that note, I would love to offer my eyes on your website also. So if you would like help zeroing in on what changes out of all these are going to be the most impactful for your website, if you want an expert to kind of like weigh in and give you tailored guidance on things like colors and layout and even the copywriting or the words you use on your site, you're going to want to go ahead and grab this homepage audit. And I'd scroll right past it. Sorry, y'all. So what happens during the audit is that I will review your homepage. I will review the structure of your main navigation, and I'm going to send you a video walkthrough of exactly what I would change. Sinead is going to go ahead and put that link in the chat. If you could help me out there, that'd be wonderful. Thank you. It is $97. It takes about 3 days for me to get it back to you, and that is available to you guys for the next week. Separately from that, I don't want you to have to buy something to get support, frankly. So separately from that, I have a couple freebies for you. You can use the exact same link to get to them. The link that Sinead is sharing will lead you to a page where you can choose one or both of these things. So separately, I'm going to give you guys the homepage map so you have your own copy of it. And it comes with a checklist that reiterates all of the pointers that I gave you today, helping website visitors see your business as trustworthy, see it as convenient, see it as delightful. In other words, a checklist that helps you turn your website into an experience. So again, to get those, you're going to click the same link that Sinead shared in the chat, and you'll be able to download those freebies instantly. You do not have to sign up for my newsletter to get them. They're just available to you. All right, that does it. I would love to open the floor for questions. Sinead, do we have a few already queued up here?
We did get a couple of questions. So yeah, this has been really great. I really like the snack size overview of the offerings. We have that on the page template as well for Offering Tree, and I was playing around with that myself. I'm making all these notes for things. It's going to keep me busy tonight, updating my website. So Terry had to hop off, but they had a great question. I have a lot of visitors, but nobody signs up to my website. So that's potentially an experience issue right now. Terry did share a link to their website. I don't know if you want to take a quick look at it, or if you want to talk about how to kind of drive those visitors there in the first place, I guess. And
so first off, if you're receiving a lot of visitors in the first place, this is a chain reaction. First, people need to show up before you can sell them the thing. So if you've got people showing up to your website, you've got one part of the chain figured out, which is like, pat yourself on the back. You've got a bunch of visitors to your website, which means you're driving traffic to it successfully. So first, we're going to give you jazz hands for that. That is very cool. Now, once people land on your website and you're like, but they're not buying anything, then it's a bit of a troubleshooting game. And it could be your website experience. It could be, it could be something as functional as a broken link, it could be that it doesn't load correctly on mobile, so they literally cannot sign up. But it also could be something like the price of what you're offering or the way you position what you're offering. It's not necessarily connecting with people that's going to solve their problems. So there's a bunch of scenarios that it could be. And now we're in troubleshooting mode. We're trying to figure out like, well, what is it? Because I would not want you to invest a bunch of time and energy into changing things on your website that aren't actually going to solve any problems here. So I think where I'd pause there is to go get some feedback out in the world, share it with other people, especially if you actually know the folks who went to the website and did not book. Check in with them. Like, what came up for you? Like, I don't want to pressure you into any sales, but start having some conversations about that and see if you can find a golden thread around what is stopping people. So that way, that is the thing that we address on your website. That's where I would go with that kind of question.
That's really cool. Terry's in the chat, actually, just letting us know that she's still here. So Terry,
hi, Terry.
Let us know if that answered your question. Esther is in the chat as well and says, this is not necessarily for homepage, but I've got a separate page for the studio. Should that be included on the about page to lower the number of drop-down menus? That's a good question.
Yeah, so that is, I do find, okay, there's a few things. I do commonly see that pages can be collapsed, multiple pages can be collapsed into a single page to streamline the navigation experience. That could be a very good way to handle it, unless it makes the page unmanageably long, or it connects two things that are not what someone is looking for at the same time. So I would have to take a look at your studio page, but I gotta set, I'm reading your question again. Not necessarily for the homepage, I have a separate page for the studio. Could you tell me a little bit more about what's on that studio page, Esther? I'm going to give you a quick second to respond.
Yeah, because I have a couple of questions as well. Done is better than perfect. What are your thoughts on that?
Without a doubt, without a doubt. If I had to wait for my website to be perfect, I wouldn't have one. And I'm a website person. Like I simply would not have one. The way, and I'm such a perfectionist when it comes to my own site. Other people's websites, I'm done in a flash. Boop, 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 done. Like I can whiz through them. My own website, good luck. It's just a different experience for me as a designer. And the only way I have been able to win at managing my own website is to do it incrementally, to do it bit by bit, some days I log in and it's just changing like one line of text, other days I can dedicate half a day to it. It's also possible to just get there is no such thing as perfect. Your website is kind of like a living, breathing representation of you out in the world. It's going to evolve over time. There is no done. Like there's no point where you're like, my website's done forever. I will never need to do this again. Like, no. So just kind of approaching it in these little pockets of time with what you've got, one little edit here and there. Done is better than perfect. Love it.
Yeah, that makes me feel a lot better, actually. I'm sure it does for everyone else.
I might have needed to hear that one today. Thank you.
Okay, we've got a response from Esther there in the chat. Do you want to read through that, Caitlin?
Sure, thank you. Yes, it's mainly about the history, the opening, the style, etc., the amenities, how the studio operates through school terms only. Okay, and if others want to hire it, how to get in touch. Yeah, all of that sounds like excellent about page content. If anything, I would consider taking maybe like a few of the highlights from that page. Like what are like the top 3 takeaways about how like ridiculously awesome your studio is, and sprinkle those onto the homepage. But it sounds like that's a really good candidate to merge in with an about page. Mm-hmm.
That's cool. Oh, and Kelly's just popped in. It's one thing to know what to do. It's another thing to muddle through getting it done. Do you do only the strategy part or also the application slash execution?
All of the above. I love the strategy part can be really fun. You know, and anyone that ends up getting an audit will see that like I get a lot of joy out of going to your website, reading through all of it, understanding what you bring to the table, what is special about your business, but then also bringing that customer perspective and saying, okay, well, how do I get what I want as a customer? And you get to communicate all of that special stuff to me. That is wonderful. Also, I literally design and build websites every day. So I can help you with all of the above.
Cool.
Or point you in the right direction.
That is good to know. And I know we've had a couple of questions. Chris had left one earlier. What do you do when you're just starting out and don't have, oh, hang on, I've just cut that off, don't have a presence on Google or reviews of your business yet? SEO, I guess, blog writing, trying to be found.
Well, is the question about, and it might be, but we just don't have enough information about it yet, about how to get found without those things, or how to generate those things when you don't have them. Was there more information about that, or was that the...
That was it, Chris. If you're still here, do you want to clarify on that? So the question was, so what do you do when you're just starting out and don't have a presence on Google or customer reviews
For
yet?
social proof. Thank you, Chris. For social proof. If you literally just do not have, then you can't put it, and that's okay. Everyone starts somewhere. There was definitely a time in my business I had no reviews. There were times in my business, because I was involved in other businesses through the years, where I perhaps did not have client reviews about the business I was in, but I had genuine, authentic reviews from other hats that I wore through the years that I was able to use, as long as they still felt that they were speaking truly about the experience somebody had with me. I would feel comfortable using those. I would try to replace them quickly with more up-to-date, the most relevant testimonials you can get. But that could be an opportunity also, if you have testimonials that you could pull from something else. Also, start getting those testimonials. If you have a couple clients, is there a way that you can add it to your process to make sure that you're asking for those things? And then you can start to rack a couple up.
That's a really good one. I always really struggle to ask for reviews. I don't know why. If people give me one face to face, I'm like, oh, that's great. But I feel so awkward, like asking them to write one down in an email.
I have a template email that I often send out. If anyone wants to swipe it from me, I'm happy to give it to you. I also have found that people will say really lovely things to me in conversations. And so I graciously accept the compliment. And as soon as the conversation is over, I feverishly scribble it down. And then I will circle back to them and say, hey, you said this really amazing thing in this conversation we just had. I'm blushing with joy. Would you be open to letting me use this as a testimonial on my website? And I will type it out for them and I'll say, here's what you said. If you'd like to, I can use it as is, but if you'd like to edit it at all, feel free. So grateful for the opportunity to serve you. This has been really delightful. And I've gotten a bunch of testimonials that way, a bunch of really, really glowing testimonials that were actually just people talking to me, that I had just enough of my wits about me to write them down.
That is so cool. That is great advice. Esther has a good comment here. You mentioned the 3 services that can be highlighted in the homepage, but I always thought that the homepage should be about the number 1 service we want them to sign up for. Is that true?
It depends on what kind of business you're in and what your kind of offer stack is, all the offers that you offer. And that can be true for some people. You're right that it's just like the number 1 service that we want to sell. Actually, I'm in the process of revising my website in a way that puts 1 service forward like that and pulls the rest back. So that makes a lot of sense for my business. But there's also, if someone is just arriving at your site for the first time, we want what you do to be discoverable. We want to let them know the things that you do, the things that are available to them. So is there a reason to not share it with them? And what is that? So it's a bit of, that one's a bit of a strategy question and depends on exactly what you're offering. But I generally find that if you have a few categories or a few offerings, doing 2 or 3, especially if you put them all together in that kind of carousel or like 1, 2, 3 layout, is a way that you can present more than 1 offer, but still not overwhelm anyone, but still dial it back so nobody's like blah, like trying to figure out like the 37 things that you offer. If you can get it down to like 3, I think that's still a safe bet. But if for your business strategy, you're looking at, you're like, I should really just put this one front and center. This is really the thing I want to sell. Or this is the thing people come to me wanting to consume. Maybe some of the other things you offer actually are relevant for people further into their journey, people you've worked with for a couple of years already who aren't going to your website, then you can kind of pull those back. So it depends answer.
Yeah, a bit specific. Well, Esther clarified to say, for example, I need to have an initial assessment with all clients before coming to the studio. I don't do walk-ins, and my CTA is mainly that on my homepage.
Okay, so let me read back through these one more time. You mentioned that 3 services can be highlighted on the homepage, but I always thought it should be 1. And you need to have an initial assessment. So your primary call to action, okay, so your primary call to action is for them to sign up for that assessment. That's the thing that you need them to commit to doing. But what do they get to have once they've done that initial assessment? And that's what we want to share with them, either in a here is my main offer format, or in a here's my 1, 2, 3 format. So they are motivated. They're like, oh, I really like this. All right, I'm willing to do this assessment. Count me in.
Cool. Yeah, and they get a free group session after.
Very cool. Love that.
Cool. Yeah, I like that. And Esther, you'd also asked if there's an article. Sorry, Esther's questions, I've just noticed you've got it set to hosts and panelists. So for everyone else, they are there. We're not like just making them up.
Whoops.
Esther had asked if there's an article for embedding Google reviews in an offering tree site. I can't find one. I'm going to come back to you on that. I'm going to ask Eddie and the team if they've got one set up or how to do that for you. So thanks for that question.
Something I just did on, I'm sorry to interrupt you, on another service provider's website, where we were not able to embed Google reviews, is we put a button. We left several testimonials. We wrote them directly on the website, and then we put a button that said, see my Google reviews. And that button opens in a new tab so people can go see the Google reviews. So the invitation is still there for people, and you can still help people go see them, even if you are not able to do an embedded reviews.
Very cool. That's a really good tip. Chris is saying I have to go, but thank you. I plan to get the audit. Nice.
Oh, bye, Chris. Thanks for your questions.
Oh, Esther has to Esther. Too. Thank you for your questions. Okay, so what did I have? This might be too big of a question, but
let's try it.
What's the biggest mistake you see in like a DIY sort of homemade website?
Oh, 100% too much information. Too much information. Information overwhelm is a big one. I would say that's my first. And then and I think a lot of problems, even design problems, when you're not a designer but you still need a professional looking website, going for like clean and minimalist is going to get you closer than trying to do something very designery and maximalist, if those just aren't skills that are in your tool belts. So dialing back the amount of information, dialing back the design a little bit, and just focusing on like something that's just, I'd rather see clean and simple, both in the content and the design. And the other thing is writing about yourself too much, like, look how amazing I am, instead of, there's an interesting, and this is just hard to do for beginners. It's just really hard. Learning to write for your customer's point of view. So I see this often on about pages where there is a, like endless diary entry about your life experience, journey, history, and all these things, but your customer is really looking for like, yeah, but how does that help me? And so taking on that lens, taking on that perspective when you're designing your website or updating your website, editing your website, any of it, is a learned skill. But yeah, the number one that I think you have a lot of control over that you can adjust for yourself is dialing back the amount of things you're trying to tell somebody all at one time.
Yeah, and that was going to be my other thing. How long should a bio be? Because I was on somebody's website the other day. I'm like, oh no, I'm overwhelmed. It was too enormous. Like, no, I can't read it. You get to the first couple of sentences and like, no. But when you're explaining yourself, it's very difficult to trim it down and think, well, what do they want to know about?
Yeah,
that's really cool.
There's no magic length about how long your bio should be. A couple tricks that I do is you try to break it up into short paragraphs so they're easy little snippets for your eyes to consume. Remember, people are usually not reading through it. So little like kind of blurbs are really nice. Selectively bolding things so people's eyes snap right to the bolded parts is really useful. And yeah, those are probably the top two. But if you write your bio, hand it to somebody, have them read it and be like, what impressed you the most? Highlight those, get somebody else's. It is still for me too, that about page is the hardest page for me to write about myself because I'm writing about myself. It's to step out of myself and see it through someone's eyes is nearly impossible sometimes. So just literally recruiting some help will go a long way.
Yeah, that's cool. Okay. Deborah, I teach online only. What do you recommend for images? Stock images, or should they all be of me? That's a great question.
That is a really great question. So I would do a blend of both. Definitely include some images of yourself because people really like it. Helps them with their security and confidence to know who they're purchasing from. To be able to get eyes on you, it gives a sense of familiarity and it makes it personal. So make sure you include some images of you. If you need to include more images, yeah, some stock images sound good. I would opt for stock images that don't feel too stocky, if you know what I mean. There's kind of a stock image vibe where everything's like really, really brightly lit on a white background and they can start to look somewhat generic. So try to look for stock images because there are some really wonderful stock images out there now that look a little bit warmer, a little bit friendlier, a little bit more real, can be very helpful. I also don't think a website needs a ton of pictures either. So if you have just maybe 3 pictures of yourself and like half a dozen stock, like probably not even that many stock images. On my website, I think I have like 1 image on each page maybe. So, and I think I have 5 pages. So you don't need a ton of imagery. I would say whatever you feel like looks best, or if one, well, that's truly under everything. You got to like what you did. So if you like it with just pictures of you, great. If you like the stock images you found, awesome. But I think a blend of the two could work just fine.
I'm just going to show your website there, Caitlin, because your pictures on there are fantastic. I love the color contrast. It's really distinctive. Okay, so Kelly's got a question that's for you about the assessment. I already know that my website, while functional, does not represent how I help people the way I would like to. If I do the $97 assessment, can that be taken into account so the time is used wisely?
So the assessment, when you go to sign up for it, there is a field in the form that asks you if there's something, like what is going to be the outcome for you. I have a process for this that, to kind of keep things streamlined, but I want this to serve you. So if there is something that you are really hoping that I will take a look at, let me know. If there's a goal that you have that you want to accomplish with this assessment, awesome. Let me know. I'd really prefer to zero in on where it's going to support you rather than just like slapping on a couple bullet points and saying that's what you get. So, and also I think we can do that through your homepage. We want your homepage to capture how you specifically help people. So that sounds very on point to me.
That's cool. Well, we have a couple of minutes left. And before we log off, I'd love to hear from everyone. What was your key takeaway today from all of the information that Caitlin's just shared? I'm trying to think of one huge one, but there's just so many little ones that I want to take away. I think not having to commit to a branding idea and stick with it for 5 years and be able to keep revisiting my website is a good one. I do tend to find I put my website on the back burner so that when I do go and mess around with it, I just completely fall down the rabbit hole and spend hours there. And then I'm like, oh, this is amazing. But it's one of those tasks, right? You're like, oh, it's doing its thing. It's okay.
Happens to the best of us. Happens to me too.
And Kelly's saying so many takeaways. I like the clear, concise outline and the checklist. Yeah, make sure you've used Caitlin's link as well, everybody. Deborah's saying I have a lot of work to do and I'm really interested in consultation. That's awesome.
Oh, that's lovely, Deborah. It would be really nice to chat with you.
Well, if you're here for the live, you're going to get the replay email with all the links that we've shared, all the information. So don't worry about saving anything. If you're here for the replay, you'll have seen all that information when you signed up. We are always available at hello@offeringtree.com if you need to contact us at all. And you'll see all of Caitlin's information coming through to you there as well. Yes, Audrey, I think you probably typed that as I was saying it. The links will be available in the replay. Laurie's saying so much great information. Thanks for the checklist. Shireen saying thank you all for all the golden nuggets. Nice presentation. Thanks, everybody. Well, Caitlin, I echo all of that. That was incredible. Thank you so, so much. And I hope everybody hops over to Caitlin's link and signs up. And we would love to see your websites if you do in our Facebook group. Yes, we want to see it. We want to see what you did and we want to learn from it. So yeah, thanks everybody. We'll log off now. So take care. We'll see you soon. Thank you again, Caitlin.
Absolutely. Thank you so much for having me, y'all. It was a pleasure to chat with you all, and thank you for your questions. So have a wonderful rest of your day.
You too. Bye-bye. Bye, everybody.